Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? We are excited to welcome Clare Jedrek here shortly in a conversation about resilience and purpose, particularly from the perspective of performance. Now, what's really cool is that Clare is a race car driver here in Singapore. And one second. And we're shortly. What's very interesting about Clare is that she's the only female race car driver in Singapore, and she's been. Hi there, Clare.
Hi, hello.
How's it going?
Good, thank you. Carry on.
I'm gonna pretend that you're actually in a race car right now.
I thought it was something that was a good scene to set since I'm to do with cars.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was just introducing you to the IG Live audience here at Chōsen. And what I really love about interacting with you and the things that you take on in your life is that it takes a lot of growth, openness to growth, a lot of resilience to actually tackle things like being a female race car driver, like having a family during this crazy time, innovating, being an entrepreneur, and all these things. But I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you tackle these amazing facets of your life.
Well, I mean, I guess just to introduce, you gave a little bit of introduction. I work in motorsport as a presenter. I was racing before everything kind of shut down. I had a little bit of a time away. I had two kids. One is 2.5. The other one is 1 year old. Life hasn't really slowed down at all, but it's been absolutely awesome. I definitely see everything that I do as the way that you view the world, as the way that you choose to do things. We had a go-kart business, which was an extension of ourselves, the karting arena that we have actually now sold on during the times of COVID. But we are also part of another business that we have actually grown during this period, the lockdown period of time. We transitioned our marketing company and arm, where we used to use the marketing for motorsport, and we transitioned it, and we realized that we actually work for a lot of clients called the film dispensary. And we transitioned and worked and put together a team and just worked on marketing, on doing videography, just the one-stop shop approach on having everything instead of having red tape of, having to talk to people. We just do everything in-house, and we do that for other people. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love the story. Basically, you're in motorsport as a performance athlete, and you tackling learning skills over a long time. And then during COVID, that not being available to you, you guys still managed to make a shift and still make an impact in the community that you're involved with. So that's amazing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, sometimes we forget, especially in times like this. A lot of people have had to transition during this period of times, and sometimes people have believed, oh, it's been a bleak situation, or what am I going to do? But I wouldn't say that we had to dig deep, but we looked at our strengths as an individual, as a team, and what assets we already had, and how we could use that to carry on to, I suppose, just to survive, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I love it. It's very relatable because a lot of people reached out to us. They're like, "Oh my goodness, Clare Jedrek. She's very almost intimidating, and a motorsport athlete, and just all around generally amazing human." And I'm like, "Yeah, she's going to talk a little bit about making the pivot, making the shift, and keeping the mindset going." I have a couple more questions for you on after Charlie was born, your second child. How did you dive back into life and the life that you're actually, known for living, which is passion-driven, growth-oriented, both athlete, entrepreneur? How did that work for you?
I believe that the basis of it, I think it's been training up to this point of time. It's like having I kind of imagine, I'm a very visual person, so I kind of imagine having one block on my head, then 2 blocks and 3 blocks, and slowly working up to balancing these 5 or 6 things on my head until eventually I'm just awesome at doing it. That takes a little bit of skill and organization and practice. And I think everything that we had done previously in our lives, it was always about organization. It was always about time. It was about keeping things consistent. And I think because we were always traveling and I was always in between. I have my own career, and of course we have our own business. And as a team, husband and wife, we work together. So that was very good training not just for working on myself, but also working as a team. When I added the first child, it seems a little bit naive, but it was great because we said, you know what, don't know how it's going to go. Let's just strap this thing to our back and go and figure out along the way. Of course, there was amazing life lessons I learned from that it's not so easy. But with 2, we knew that, it's not so easy when you have one person and 2 kids go whoop the other way. You've got to really think about your battle plan and choose your battles. So when it came to Charlie, I would say that it was a good amount of practice. I definitely learned the basis of how to say no to things, how to prioritize, and really see what I really wanted and things that weren't necessary. Basically, like what we were saying, motorsport, you got to go slow to go faster. So we really took, I suppose, that bumper sticker and thought about how do I cut back on things in my life that I really don't need, and I can just move forward. So I got more time to fit a child, to fit a business, to fit my own career, and also do things like nothing, spend a day playing video games, finding that space for myself so that, I can be a better person, a better parent, having my own space. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, there's about 4 or 5 questions that I was going to ask you that you've just gone through and answered quite a bit of them. How you guys have reacted to the pandemic as a family? Have you entered back into life as a parent, both as a performance athlete and as a parent and entrepreneur? I know that you joined our resilience program a couple months ago, and I would love to hear what your key takeaways were. What was the most impactful thing that you've been implementing in your daily life since then?
Wow. So the resilience program, what was interesting is I think as a person, it's always important, especially it felt like time was standing still. But it doesn't mean we are standing still on all levels, physically, mentally, and life has to go on, even though the pandemic is there. And the course for me, what really stood out is things like creating the synapses in your brain and creating new pathways to keep on learning, to keep on creating and being a creative person and bringing back all these things when your life may seem overwhelmed with these other problems. You may have anxieties about work, about our health, about our hygiene, and it really gave place where resilience course gave my pathway for my thought process to be in a better position, just a more positive position on how to take on the post-COVID, I suppose, post-COVID life. And that has been the most important thing. So for me, the biggest takeaway is about neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity, I mean, you can just go Google that in, it'll give you a basic layman term. And you don't have to be a rocket science, but that behavioral change of learning how to do things. So it was small things, like when you're saying, every day, why don't you try something? Brush your teeth with your left hand, try and write a mirror image, things that you don't really do. You think, oh, okay, that's a weird thing to try and write your name both ways in the mirror image. And it's such a simple thing, but it had so much impact on how we do things. Even for me, people get stuck in I suppose, a uncreative loop, and they think, what can I do different? How can I change? How can my life change? And small things about going, I'm going to walk 20 meters longer today on a different route. I always go down this route because it's the fastest route, but I have time. It's the small things like this, and then I see different things, I think different things, and it was just creating these pathways to just expand myself in a little other than the blinkers that I've put myself on, because life, especially in Singapore, is about go, 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 go. What's the fastest route? So it was really important that I felt like that I'd learned from the resilience course, and also thinking on the go, which is not my speciality.
Yeah.
Having that kind of, I'm not sure what the everyday life of being quick-witted, but thinking on the go was something that I really thought without having to think too hard. What do I really want to, like when you ask me, you asked us questions like, when you were a child, what was your favorite thing, your favorite memory? You know,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, you know, what on the go. I know it's there. I know what my favorite memory is, but I don't want to think too hard about it. So it all comes naturally to me, and I just keep practicing that.
That's amazing. Like you kept touching on this concept of creativity, and I guess the last part, like a little bit of letting go, and that resonates with me deeply because I know you and your husband Yui are both athletes. You're both performance athletes in a race car. Things are happening at 200 plus kilometers an hour, and you know the concept of letting go links directly to this concept of flow state, that you're in the moment and you're trusting your body, you're trusting your intuition. And then you were talking about creativity, which is also really remarkable as an athlete that you're describing that. How do you think you're going to incorporate creativity in your athletic pursuits and in the future?
In the future, I mean, I think for me, I think for sport and for athleticism, I mean, me and my husband, we love trying new sports. We're always going back to new things. But to us, it also, we do things, yes, for enjoyment, but we also do things because the skill set of just learning something new. And I think it applies, having that focus, having that flow state.
Mm-hmm.
For us, I enjoy that. I really enjoy that, having that time away. So I think when it comes to the future state, it's just that resilience of keep on trying, you know, not giving up, or not, you know, getting over the small humps in life. That's how I relate it. You know, I have small
Yeah.
things where I might go over on my bike, I might do this. I unfortunately got hit by a car, you know, 3 months ago. A lot of people have come out. I mean, there's one camp that's quite negative, saying you should never cycle again. That is, you have a family, you shouldn't do this. But that doesn't occur to me. It's about going back on there. Okay, fine. You know, yes, maybe it was a dangerous situation. I can't help everything. I can't control my environment. But what can I do to keep on enjoying it? What can I do to keep on learning and doing the things that bring me enjoyment in life? And even for me, like just before this, it's been 3 years since I've been on the golf course. But it's
You're
a new
there now,
sense.
right?
Yeah, that's correct. um, that's also my enjoyment, you know, learning the skill set of patience, of learning body control, of learning letting go. It's very much about letting go in golf. And I think each thing in sport which I enjoy is that it's so truthful and it's so pure that you have to learn how to let go of ego each time you do something. And I think this is why I do it, because it's about letting go of ego. Even having kids for me was a learning. Each time I had one, I've only had two, but each time I had a child, it was also an ego check, a massive ego check for me. So it was also a big learning curve. Everything to me is a stage of learning.
That's amazing. And I, you know, what I love when we talk about this stuff, Claire, is that, you know, particularly as these three major components of your life, right? You're an athlete and a performance athlete going, you know, over 200 kilometers an hour, and you have to execute on very specific skills and everything. And then, you know, as an entrepreneur, business person, as a presenter, as a media personality in Singapore, there's skills that are associated with that. And then, you know, the concept of motherhood, even, that you're bringing in. I love how you're encapsulating that from the perspective of constantly checking the ego and constantly learning new things. And I think that willingness is actually really inspirational. Is I think in the,
Thank
you know,
you.
yeah, it's like it's remarkable because we see so many people who are struggling right now, and they're kind of entrenched. You know, they're kind of pulling back into themselves. And what you're describing is in these moments, like right now with a business pivot, not being able to be in a race car, not being able to present to audiences, and then having the family and everything else, you're describing this really amazing process of, instead of entrenching and hiding, you're opening yourself up to try new things and put yourself out there, which to me is inspirational. So we really appreciate that.
Well, I definitely, I mean, it's not to say that I don't have my moments where I don't feel like I want to pull back. You know, there are moments where the imposter syndrome, I think, do I know what I'm doing? Am I saying the right thing? Am I, the doubts, which is normal. It's human nature to do that. But that's where I think the resilience comes in, and just practicing. There's something which was really important for me is that I learned on the resilience program at Chōsen was that you spoke a lot about practicing being in a positive headspace or doing positive things, expanding on that topic, because complaining about something, saying that I can't do something, I find this hard, and it's fine to say that, but you are subconsciously practicing a negativity. You're subconsciously practicing how to keep on complaining for the next time, rather than thinking, okay, I'm not saying that you need a solution all time, but at all times, but if we changed our behavior and just said when something is difficult, going, it's okay, there's next time, it's okay, don't worry about today, there's another day tomorrow, things are happening to me right now, it's okay, there are other things to look forward to. Just breathing and living and practicing that kind of mindset, so you then don't feel overwhelmed. That is something that was quite big, that stood out as well for me, from the resilience program.
Yeah, and you're saying it so well. You've actually looped straight back around to that concept of neuroplasticity that you kicked it off with, right? It's you're doing this in such a approachable, eloquent way, where we were talking through the resilience course. It's you are what you practice, right?
Yes.
And that's what's really inspirational for to speak with you, because both when we talk to Yui and yourself about being in a race car, if you're not practicing those things consistently, you're going to mess up and potentially hurt yourself, right? And you extend that into the daily life, where you're like, wait a second, I have a choice to practice positivity. And it's neuroscience, which is so amazing that that's your big takeaway on that.
Absolutely, John.
Yeah. And I have some more questions that people asked to ask you, and we're gonna go through, and I'm gonna put them out to you and have you do that whole intuitive thing and just boom, fast answers.
Okay, let me take a sip of water. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll both do it.
Whew, okay.
You can answer this for as long as you want, but we're gonna go with intuitive. You ready?
Okay.
All right. Number one, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were 12 years old?
Okay, that's easy. I knew when I was 12 years old, I wanted to be a journalist. I used to see my parents watch the BBC all the time. They still do, read the newspapers. And I used to see these TV journalists on the front line, in different situations, reporting back. And I also thought about being a writer. So I used to write books and have alternative endings. I used to tape record things and say stories back to my sister. It didn't quite go down that path, because of, I guess, what would you call that? Pressure, peer pressure, or just being naive, listening to other people as a teenager about the industry. But in some weird kind of way, I have still kind of ended up in that. So that's awesome.
I was gonna say that you've kind of like eventually crafted your life to be back to your.
It was going to be. It was. I think it was always going to be, whether I studied it or not.
Yeah. Well, second question is, so now that you're, highly skilled, you're a resilient person, you're a performance athlete, you've gone through giving birth 2 times, how do you manage stress?
Manage stress. I actually practice. So the biggest problem before that I noticed about myself, I used to have like anxiety, and I'd let it get to me and I could feel it piling up. I actually one of the biggest things that I learned now is the tactical breathing, which is actually something which I learned for you. And I try and do it every time before I refocus or do something else for the day, whether it's just doing nothing, if it's, you know, taking the time out. It's just like a reset button and refocus.
Yeah.
I definitely focus a little bit on breathing. Just I do the four breaths in, hold for 4 breaths out, and hold that for 4 seconds. Sorry, not 4 breaths. And I practice moments like that just to refocus. Also, the biggest stress I find is organization. So getting yourself prepared, not over prepared, but prepared and being organized beforehand. So if I know that I have a child, like when she was a lot younger, Charlie, and you never know what's going to happen within half an hour before you leave the house, I get ready 3 hours before. So I leave that 1 hour to chaos.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Thank you for that. So what is your current fitness goal that you're working on?
So fitness goal is loving my body a bit more. I've been plagued with some injuries a little bit. I went on one of your physical courses last time, and the fear of missing out is big with me. And the one thing which struck me and has always kept to me is that I remember being when I was pregnant the second time I went for your for the Bali trip, and you said also a lesson is not going for a surfing lesson or not going and following everybody and being okay with it and being, you know, a little bit zen going, kind of it's okay if I'm not surfing. It's absolutely fine. So the biggest thing for me is I do a lot of cycling. I had a bit of a knee problem and I was getting aches and pains, and obviously because I have work, but also because I learned about cortisol, obviously I'm also hurting because maybe there's certain amounts of stress of work. Is that I need to take better care of my body. So this is definitely one of the biggest things for me, because I just want to make sure my body is in a good condition before I go out and I want to go and, you know, cycle 200 kilometers and raise money for charity. I have to be the better version of myself before I can give back to others and do these other things.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's incredible. I think just listening to you say that, and the context there is that you are a performance athlete, and as a performance athlete, you're saying that your main focus is taking amazing care of yourself, which is so cool, so amazing. Yep. Let's see. Next question. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, people not indicating when they're on the road. You know, I definitely breathe a lot. Like, I go like, you know, it's fine. Don't get angry. Don't let I could feel the emotions starting to rise. And I think, you know what? Maybe I make mistakes on the road too. Maybe I do things. So I have to learn to be more accepting of it. And I tell myself, if I'm going to dish that out verbally by myself in the car, you know, to myself, oh, bloody hell, look at those people not going across 4 lanes. I think about the time, you know what? Then just be polite and nice back. Practice it back. I do. I sit in the car and think a lot about that.
I love how you instantly framed your biggest pet peeve in a positive way. I appreciate that. That was great. What book have you read recently that most positively affected you?
What book have I read recently? Oh my God, how can I remember not the name of it? It was about sleeping. It was about I think I shared it with you. It was the science of sleeping. It was about sleeping at different ages and different stages, because sleeping has been such a big issue, and it's something that I've learned to kind of conquer, or in the process of conquering, in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And it's just been, it's funny how a book that can be so in-depth with information can be so exciting when you read it, and then you learn about the processes of REM or the other moments. It's just fascinating at different stages of life, which kind of explain why I'm like this or why I was like that. And just using that information and sharing it with other people. It's super exciting, like reading a book like that.
That's
I can't remember the name of the book, but I've got short-term memory when it names of books. I try to chew through. That's like a flow state. I read and go,
So next question, how competitive are you and your husband?
Ha!
And who wins?
This much. Um, yeah, man. I mean, competitive. I can tell you when it goes to different places and we're driving, fuel consumption. Okay, I don't compete on him on that, but um, I'm pretty competitive on a normal, I suppose, everyday basis. Um, but only, I think I'm only competitive because I want to be the best version, the best wife I can be, the best, and have the most output, which is quality over quantity. I think that's why I'm competitive, because I think this is a person I care about. So I want to, it's like, a child and their mother. It's like, look, I won this. Like, I have that kind of thought process. I want to be the best mother. I want to be the best partner. I want to be, so this is why I do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I like it, the frame there, because it keeps coming back to what you were talking about, like dispensing of the ego and being like, hey, I'm here. Let's do this. This is great. Um, let's see. If you could be in any decade or era, which one would it be?
The either 60s or 70s. I
Yeah.
think I see, I think it's probably shaped a little bit by looking at photos that my parents had in London at those kind of times, and listening to the stories about, the freedom of how they think, the freedom of how they, I think, just spoke to each other. And it just seemed a point of time where there was a lot less ego, and it was just a lot more, it just seemed a lot more pure, from just conversations with them. Yeah, so I
Well,
think the
there's no
60s
there's
or
no phone.
70s. There was, yeah, no, and that is true. There was no phone. I'm on the cusp of millennia child, 80s. So, I just remember a world that was just a lot more pure in enjoyment in things without the mobile. I have my daughter. She's 13 months coming up, and she's obsessed with the phone. Hello, hello,
Oh
because
wow,
obviously we're on it. She knows how to look at it. She's 13 months. It's insane. Um,
that's nuts. Let's
yeah.
let's go back in time then to Claire's 60s and 70s. So the last few, what advice would you give to new mothers out there?
Um, it's like advice about not advice. So one of the biggest
I like it. You're
things,
like, it's not advice.
it's like advice about having no advice. It's a tricky question. I think one of the biggest things which I think constitute from taking away anxiety from myself about being a mother, it is a big change, and you've got to take into account hormones and all sorts of crazy wild things. Not just as I mean, I don't want to put it just as a mother. I'd like to think it's a together process. Yes, I gave birth, but I always include Yui on in it. Because unfortunately, as a male, he can't give birth, and I can't blame him for that, for not going through that. He just can't physically do it. Um, so um, going back to the question, is really some. It's the age old thing of just saying less is more. Sometimes, a lot of people will give you advice. A lot of people will say do this, do that. Sometimes you really have just got to do your own thing. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. People are like, what are you feeding it? What are your mounts? How do you do this? Why, have you started him on this program yet? Are they, and I get lots of queries and doubts about the way I parent my child and run loose, and he's picking up insects and picking up food and, on social media and, you know, but I just, there's some things I can't worry about. I just, and if I know certain things that are triggers as a parent, I tend to just go down the path to let go just a little bit. I think, of course, being a role model as a parent is important, and they do learn everything from you. So I think that's why I always want to try and aim to be the best person. I think it's just a normal process. I think for anyone, you don't have to be a parent. But yeah, taking away from reading too much, sometimes overreading, over digesting, over Googling, it creates more stress. That that world, our parents, people out there were smoking and drinking and doing drugs, and yet they still had, 5 children, and they turned out fine. Yeah, you know what I mean? I just think, I definitely think, excuse me, I definitely think as a parent sometimes that we're just thinking about too many things that we need to do for the child, and for themselves. So we just need to let go of all of that and not read too much. I mean, it's also technology also is a small blame of the problem. My child fell off my lap at 2 weeks and onto the carpet, and I spent 5 hours throughout the night Googling. My anxiety was up to here. And actually it was fine. Instinctively, I think, like it was fine. Yeah.
I love that your themes are consistent. There's consistent themes where even this, this concept of, not actively stressing yourself out, and then, letting go as the key advice that you have for new moms, new parents, which is fantastic. And I love how you're holding on to that. And another thing that really struck me is that, your 2 kids are remarkable. They're really fun. They're really exciting. And they're learning all of that from you, and
Mm-hmm.
you. Like the 2 of you guys are setting an example of constant growth and learning and acceptance and positive mindset and challenging yourself, which is amazing. So it's down to the last question for you. What does living optimally mean to you?
Ooh, living optimally. Let me see. Living optimally me is something which I've taken time to figure out for myself. I used to think, I'm going to give I guess a contrast. Living optimally in the past used to mean looking at my calendar, looking at the spaces and filling my time out. That was living optimally, going at the maximum rev limit for everything all the time. What I forgot about is that there's wear and tear for hardware, for everything, for software. And for me, living optimally now is finding the most amount of time for myself to do the things that I want to do. And always creatively learning in that process. For me, that definitely is living optimally. It's been such a process. I think about the moments as a child where I felt free and I didn't feel the ties of people looking at me, what they were thinking about me. I was just doing things purely for the enjoyment of me, for my family, and working on myself, like I go back and I said before, so that I'm the best possible person when it comes to my child. And actually, I wanted to answer the last question, and it connects back to that, is that this energy, and I believe in it. It's nothing like shisha shasha hippie. I'm not spiritual, I'm not anything, but there is an energy. There is an energy in the home. And when you have that optimization of having that time, it bleeds out, and your children know it, your children feel it, your friends feel it, your family feels it. And I love it because it has a ripple effect that becomes a big, massive wave that everybody gets onto because it trickles into them. And to me, that's what life optimization is about.
Wow.
Does it make sense?
It makes perfect sense. It makes absolute sense. And I love that you describe the before and after. And, even from like a physical perspective, you're describing it as something that is, you called it wear and tear, right? So as an athlete, you had the epiphany. You're like, wait a second, I can't be redlined all the time. No. And then you shifted and you're like, well, what does it mean to me for real? And it's things like freedom and making sure your family is taken care of in the way that you want them to be, and then living a life that is important to you and significant to you. And it's just, it's bringing a smile to my face right now. So.
That's good. I mean, saying this out is also an epiphany to me, because then it's just having this on the spot thought is really then understanding and giving me that feeling, wow, this is coming from deep down inside, because I didn't have to think so hard about it. And it's quite amazing. This is flowing out and it's quite eloquent. I'm like, whoa, Claire, I'm saying these things.
We'll
so it's pretty awesome. That's good. I'll be like,
You're like, hey
yeah,
guys, this is what I said. This is great. Check it out.
new bumper sticker.
Yeah, there you go. You're like, freedom.
I know.
So that brings us down to the close. The closing question is the same as the first question. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Who do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be me. I want to be me because there is so much more just awesome kick-ass, that's your word there, like, you know, life to go, and it excites me. Change no longer frightens me. It doesn't give me doubt. It excites me because change, I mean, not only does it mean progression, but there's always a chance to do something, to keep being creative, and just, yeah, just living life, and just being with the people, uh, just living with the people that I have around me, doing things that I want to do. I want to be me.
Amazing. Thank you, Claire. So everyone who tuned in for the IG Live, we're going to be posting
Thank
this to
you.
Permanent Stories. So Claire and I bid you adieu. Thank you so much. And we'll be checking back in with Claire over the next few months to see how things are progressing in Singapore, and more stories of growth, change, and general awesomeness. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Claire, so much. We'll talk to you
Thank
guys soon.
you. Bye.
Bye.